Hello everyone, today is going to be a quick one because I finished gloves. No mittens, but gloves when you have fingers. So first things first, I did not follow any pattern and these are not for me, they're too big. I used DK weight yarn. I'm going to show you in a sec what that was. I used US size 4, which is 3.5 millimeters. Normally I would go for US size 6, 4 millimeters, but posted some footage on Instagram stories. I had to frog it. And then I started again, and when I was frogging it, I decided to change the needle size, because what I did in the first, I used US size 4, which is 3.5 millimeter needles, and then I went to use 4 millimeter needles, which is US size 6, and then I had to frog. And when I was deciding to frog it, I noticed that the stitches are quite loose. I decided to continue with US size 4, which is 3.5 millimeter knitting needles. So I told you needles I used for the ribbing and the kind of body, but actual fingers I use US size 6, which is 4 millimeters, because the circumference you're knitting, smaller it gets, tighter your gauge is going to be. So from perspective even to your own gauge, if that makes any sense. And why knitting anything for Sab? Because I maybe knitted him this hat, which is hat for him. Oh yeah, and I designed a strong whiskey hat, which is also for him. And then I knitted, obviously you can see, for myself, because I liked it. It's kind of fake cables that's not a cable anyway. And anytime I went to yarn festivals, anything like that, I always got a yarn for Seb to maybe in the future knit him a hat, because you know I'm a hat lover. I love hats. So I got this yarn. I got this kind of one ball of DK weight yarn. This is Gilliat 100% wool, and this is the color Forest. We have over here 250 meters in 100 grams. It was made in France, so it's French yarn. So 250 meters would be like, I don't know, but it's exactly the same yarn from perspective of the yardage for comparing to the yarn that I used to knit my new design Wishes and Dreams sweater. So on the screen, check it out. So I definitely have that in the pattern, what the 250 meters is. And I got this yarn because during that, I think, Edinburgh Yarn Festival, I got this magazine. You probably, that's the Lane magazine, Nordic Knit Life, and this is number 4. I don't have any others, I just have one. And this yarn was used of this sweater. When I went to the booth and I saw the prices, I was just, you know what, that'll be just hat for Seb. But as you can see, I haven't knitted a hat, I knitted gloves, because this is literally his color. He has everything in the greens more than browns actually. Any shade of green works for him and it fits him perfectly. And because I had him next to me once making one, I was asking him to put a hand in and I was able to knit as long as it was needed. While I was knitting one, I was writing down on the piece of paper how many stitches I have for each fingers and how many rounds I have to do the creases. For this pattern I decided to do 2 rounds the creases. I was knitting together or SSK, depends how many stitches I had to kind of even up through those 2 rounds. I still have some leftovers. I'm not sure what I will be able to do with it though. So just in case you want to have maybe a men's size, what I did, I casted on 48 stitches and I was doing 1 by 1 ribbing, and I continue that for as long as the ribbing that person would want. Seb wanted the long one, so this is 21 rounds. And then I was knitting just for, I'm just guessing, I should have I don't know where I put the notes. I was knitting it for maybe 5 rounds, and then I was adding stitches to create this thumb, because sometimes you could see that the gloves have only a gap. Start knitting on the thumb maybe over here. So yeah, but I wanted to have it outside, and if you want to know how I do that, I would say go check out my free pattern, which is Easy Mittens. It's fingering weight mittens, but that's what I was doing over here. I maybe used different increases, but the idea is exactly the same. And I was increasing it to 14 stitches over here. And then I decided that that's that, put it on hold, and then I was knitting for maybe, I'm guessing, 8 rounds over here to get it higher. And from that moment, I knew I'll have to divide the stitches that I had between 4 fingers. I forgot to tell you, I decreased after ribbing from 48 stitches to 44 stitches in the round, if that makes sense. So I decided obviously that the little finger, the pink little finger, is the smallest one, so I treated I treated this 3 as kind of together and the same way, and this one was slightly less number of stitches. So yeah, at the end of the day, I still had to use some yarn, go inside and close the gaps between the fingers, and even sometimes I had to get a small bit of yarn and then just weave in or double stitched to make some areas tucked together. That makes sense. So for the first pair, I wouldn't be the proudest, although this is not first pair ever for me. I've knitted, this is actually the second one. The first one I knitted was, maybe I was 16, so that was a while back. And that time I remember I used acrylic yarn, I used DPNs, I used 4mm. I know I had only leftovers of a bit of yarn, but it was a pretty cool idea because I kept the color, like a body and ribbing the same, or even ribbing was different, body was different, but then each finger was also different, which was really, really cool. One day probably I will knit one for myself, because literally in the DK weight it took me 2 days to do it. So that's pretty cool. And everything was spiced up and kind of encouraged, motivated to do so by Rita. She sent me this beautiful bag. No, she sent me on the 22nd of December, and it arrived in February. So I think it took 8 weeks to arrive, and she made this beautiful, beautiful bag. She made another one, but I'm thinking of, you know, I need to put something there, cast it on and see how it goes. So I will be putting some knitting projects into this bag for Seb, and I have my mittens keychain over here to know that I was doing that. The project was inside. So if you're interested to maybe get some of these, I have them in my shop, so check it out. And I'm sending from Ireland, which is in European Union. I hope you enjoyed this one. See you next one. Don't forget to subscribe, like, check the description for the video. Maybe you'll find something you will enjoy. And I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.